never feel the way this hurts.
Welcome to the highlights of day one of Henley Royal Regatta 2016. The big talking point today has not necessarily been the racing, although some of that has been excellent. It's been the weather, which has been anything but. The wind, well, you can still see it, still going strong now, but during some of the patches in the middle of the day, it was windy, wet and cold. It was absolutely brutal for some of the crews out on the water. Before the weather really got bad though, there was a patch a couple of hours in the morning where the weather was actually quite nice. And during that patch, we're going to show you the first race in the Forley Challenge Cup. Two young crews, Lee versus Molesey.
Just want to look at that Lee steering. They've just gone off towards the island. That's it, they're back on track now.
So the boys from Lee Rowing Club in East London, that's your patch, Mark, and they are sculling nicely in their Filippi Shell, I think the Italian boat, ahead of the boys from Molesey in black. Well, showing the form that took them to the Junior 16 title, national title last year, showing the form that took them into the final of the Junior 18 quads this year, and it's a very close race. Helen Taylor, the Molesey coach, will be extremely pleased, I think, with the performance of her crew. And it is a very tight race. I think Molesey might just be coming back when we see a shot on the boys in Lee, a sprint finish, and Lee outside on this furthest station, Bucks, but they're on the left of your screen. Molesey are giving it their all, Mark.
Yeah, that's a fantastic race for the Molesey boys there. You know, stayed in their bubble, did their race, and they're coming into Longden Stewards enclosure with a canvas lead.
So they haven't let up, Molesey Boat Club, and that's a fantastic Matthew Hardy. The race still isn't done yet. They come to the finish line. It's very close. Lee looking for the finish. Molesey looking for the finish. It looks like Molesey might just be ahead. And I think, what a great finish that was from Molesey Boat Club. Lee were broken in the last part of that race, Mark, and that was an amazing finish. Molesey are too exhausted to celebrate.
The wind and rain during the middle parts of today really caused a challenge for most of the racing crews. But yesterday, before all the weather hit, I went out to have a look at the course and see where these races can turn. This is where it all begins. This is the start of the Henley Royal Regatta course. The finish is 2,112 metres away. And this can be some of the most nerve-wracking moments of your career. One of the things that makes this place unique is how close the crowd are. You'll be on the start here, and there'll be people sitting over there on the grass, dabbling their toes in the water without a care in the world. Your opposition will be a few metres away on the other side. If mind games are going to happen, this is where it's going to take place.
Go!
So if you've never been to a start before, the power of these things is unbelievable. Left us for dead. So these two crews have started brilliantly straight. The trick is you've got to stay like that all the way down the course. This is one of the quintessential views of the regatta course. Temple Island and the temple on it are absolutely beautiful. But if you're racing, you haven't got time for any of that. You're worried about where you are on the course and how close to the opposition. And unlike any other rowing race, these are what divide the river. You can probably get away with a glancing blow against one of the booms, those floaty bits, but if you hit one of these bad boys, it's pretty much game over.
Blade scraping the moss off the booms down. Oh, there we are, clattered into the booms.
So this is the barrier. It's the first timing point on the course, and it's the first landmark really that the commentators are going to talk about. The barrier is operated from this signal box out in the river, so there'll be at least one person in that box, and it draws a timing line across to those grey posts on the towpath where there's still a cattle grid. That is the literal barrier. For the crews concerned, it's the first chance to look across to the other boat and decide, are we fast or are they? And if they're the faster ones, what are you going to do about it? So approaching the Forley box, which is halfway through the course. At this point, the navigation channel over on the far side, that's very close, so you'll be getting noises of jazz bands, Elvis impersonators, people on the top deck of boats drinking champagne. Over on this side, there's a lot of crowd noise and a lot of hubbub coming off this side, and the occasional whiff of a barbecue on the air. So all up the course, there are these signal boxes. This is a 3/4 mile, and the signaler's job is to look across the race and decide who's ahead. Now for me, theoretically, I'm going to say that crew 1, that's the towpath side, they're ahead. So number 1 goes up first, and crew 2, that's the island side, they're going to be half a length behind. The theory is that you can sit all the way down there at the finish with a pair of binoculars and see exactly what's happening in the race.
You see the number 2's gone up there. That signals the crew on the buck stations ahead. And now that number 1 just overlapping.
So this is the last few hundred meters of the course. You're into the enclosures. It's a cauldron. It's as close as you ever get to rowing in what feels like a stadium. Those grandstands during the racing hours will be packed, and this is where the race is really going to hurt. But in front of all the people that matter most, you've got to dig in.
So Great Britain win the Grands, and you can see what it means to Phelan Hill.
So this is us exactly on the finish line, and don't forget, Henley is pure gladiatorial, absolute knockout. Either you've won and you're going through to another race the next day, or you're out, you're going home, or you're going to the bar. The club entry in 2016 has been absolutely enormous, and the the Coxed 4 Club event has been one of the most popular for a decade or more. We're going to watch 2 Britannia races back to back. It's Stratford versus Kingston, and then Utah, one of the huge American entry this year. They'll be versus Tideway Scullers.
Stratford upon even in the crimson, black and white. Kingston Rowing Club in the scarlet. And just having a watch of the Bucks station and what happens as they veer across the course. So important to get these opening few strikes right. The umpire having a little look and urging the boat on the Buck station to try and get back onto their side of the course.
And it's quite tight for a sort of a Wednesday race on the first day. This is a really tight competition that we're seeing. I think both crews obviously have the advantage of having a coxswain on board, which hopefully will help them battle the elements that little bit better. I think the blade work from the Stratford upon Avon crew just seems that little bit tidier, which I think into the wind, every sort of millimetre counts in the water.
Oh, the boats are bobbing around, aren't they? I'm just having a look at Kingston's boat, and it's certainly hard work out there for the Coxers, if nothing else.
Wowee, we've got a real wind coming here from both crews, and I think Kingston have got back on terms.
It's Kingston on the right-hand side. It's absolutely dead level, and they've hardly got any strokes remaining in this race. This is the best race of the day so far. The Britannia Challenge Cup, Stratford upon Avon against Kingston Rowing Club. It's going to be so tight, unbelievable. Only inches in it, and just pulling away. Kingston Rowing Club on the Bark side, potentially. We'll have to look at a photo here. No, it's going to be Stratford upon Avon, potentially. Well, that is so tight. We'll wait for the official result in a moment. We would be guessing, doing it on naked eye. We can have a look at the body language of the rowers, and that'll probably give us a good indication. They all look absolutely spent. Stratford won by a foot, nearest to Stratford, and they won by a foot, which is remarkable considering the race is 1 mile and 550 yards long.
Go! And on the left of your picture, the Berkshire station, we have the Utah crew from USA in the red, and in the red and yellow on the Buck station, we have Tideway Scullers School. Both crews going off hard and fast there.
Yeah, and the Tideway Scullers crew there looked like they were tied to the island, steering very nicely as we have a look here in the Utah crew. Good high stroke rate there. And both crews look like they've got away very nicely going up the island. Well, they're just passing the marker there, and they'll be marking it up to show that this is looking like it's just about a length. And the Tideway Scullers crew here, as we see this great shot where you can just see the technique, really trying to hold the length. And you can see from that progress board on the right there, the crews are just about on one length apart. The number 1 represents the crew on the right. In this case, it's Utah on the Berkshire station. And the other number representing Tideway Scullers, who are hanging in there, trying to keep that overlap, trying to keep the pressure on Utah, which they're undoubtedly doing here as we come into the closing, I suppose, 2 minutes or so of the race.
More than hanging in there, it's it's quite tricky to tell from the perspective of the race, but the Tideway Scullers crew have upped their rating. I've got them at 35, 36 now. They lost contact, they got back to a length. We're getting a race on now, perhaps. They're really pulling back up on this young Utah crew.
Yeah, that's right. What a fantastic finish we look like we're in for here. If Scullers can keep coming back, they look to me like they're really making a move now.
Still a little bit. Their steering has let them down all the way down the course a little bit, I have to say. Look, they're just coming over a little bit again now. Or maybe
but
that's
I think
tactic.
I think they're wanting to put some tactics in there now. I think they're wanting to get close. The Cox is now doing a good job, slightly bullying the Utah crew to get right up into their face, right up so that the Utah rowers know the crew is coming back at them. Now the umpire is having to get his flag out. I think that might be John Hedger from the back of his head. He's got his flag out, signalling to tell the Scullers crew to move, and they have moved, they have responded. Get your flag down, John. Let's see what's going to happen.
What a race, these Tideway Scullers crew. They did lose contact. They're back to over half a length now. I mean, less than half a length now. Both crews now at 35 and a half. They both raised their rating. You can hear the crowds cheering them on.
And it's really interesting, John Hedger there, he's still got their umpire's flag out. He's still signaling the Scullers crew to go back towards their station. I don't think the Cox is responding much. He's leaving the boat in there. He's leaving his crew right alongside the Utah crew. The umpire still calling them, still waving their flag and using the megaphone. As long as it's a white flag, the crew's okay. It's only when the red flag comes out there's trouble. And it's looking like there could be a clash of blades even. So rare to get this sort of clash of blades at this early stage of the regatta.
Utah crew up to 38 now. They've led all the way. Can they hold off Tideway Scullers into the last few strokes?
This is going to be such a tight finish here, Alison. They're coming down towards us. Utah are looking to hang on. If Scullers get through them, the umpire's going to have a real call to make, whether he's going to actually disqualify Scullers for their steering. Utah hanging in. There's about 2 strokes left. They come to the line. And it is a win for Utah ahead of Tideway Scullers in a fantastic Henley race.
How about that for our first race of the day? So this is the Britannia Challenge Cup. First race ever for that Utah crew, and their first race ever for a Utah crew at Henley. They'll be pleased to make it through to another round. Tideway Scullers exhausted and rather...
As they call 3 cheers for the opposition, what a fantastic race that was.
It's been tough conditions watching the racing today, but if anything's going to get the crowd on their feet out of the deck chairs or out of the dining tent, it's going to be the PE. The Princess Elizabeth is the schoolboys race for 8s, and this one is Jesuit versus Pangbourne.
So, Dallas have come a long way. Will their journey be worthwhile?
Well, it looks like they're certainly putting in the effort off the start. The stroke rate is very, very high from the Jesuit College. The Jesuit look to have the measure to me, Martin. They look like a little bit more racy. They're getting caught in the wind a little bit, but they seem to be moving away on the Berkshire station.
Well, their Cox looking round, James French, and the look will confirm that they have a really telling lead over the boys from Pangbourne.
Pangbourne are actually holding the measure very well. They're not letting Jesuit School move away. They're fighting back. If I was their Cox, I'd be calling them to just put in a big push right now to see if we can break back through. This is going to turn into a really good race.
So it's the boys from Jesuit with the blue blades with the cross on. They have led this race from the off, but in these brutal conditions which they haven't quite experienced back in Dallas on White Rock Lake, they are struggling in the last part of the course, and there is just a chance that Pangbourne may yet row them down.
Rory Harris had a look over his shoulder. He can smell it. He can smell them coming into his view. I think now it's just coming down to who gives up first, Martin. This is Henley, and it's who believes that they can't win as opposed to who can win. Jesuit look to be having the more unclean blade work. Their stroke man looks to be struggling.
You can hear the noise from the enclosures.
It's getting very, very close as they come towards us, Pangbourne. I think Jesuit may still have it.
So we can see them here. There's about 10 strokes to go to the finish. I'm looking, it looks like Jesuit from our position have just got the advantage. They're in the blue, you can see them there. They've got a slight advantage, perhaps a third of a length over Pangbourne. There's still time for Pangbourne, they could come back.
10 strokes.
So there's the finish, and Jesuit High School are hanging on by their fingertips. The boys from Dallas, USA, they come to the line. If you're watching in YouTube, you've seen a hell of a race, or BT Sport 2. Pangbourne don't get through. That was a heroic effort at the finish, Alex.
I think fantastic job by both crews. Fantastic by Pangbourne to come right back in it, having been a length down. And fantastic for Jesuit to hold on at the end. Really well done by Schoolboys. Really, really well done.
An amazing race there. As usual, celebration for the winner and total dejection for the crews that are knocked out. But dejection comes in many forms here at Henley. In the Y-fold earlier in the day, the booms in the river provided the obstacle. This was race 55.
Disaster for the men from Ireland. There is nothing you can do in a situation like that, Alex.
No, this is Henley. This is one of the challenges of the course. It's the river, it's the wind, it's the stream, and it's the booms.
And then a few moments later, the conditions themselves tripped up the Northwich quad as they took on the Shiplake Vikings in the Diamond Jubilee.
Northwich started to push hard. Want to try and keep on level terms with Shiplake. They've got a point to prove.
Oh dear,
oh.
That's a crab. Oh dear, that's handed the race straight away. The number 3, Alex George.
And that's paying the price of putting the effort in. You know, you have to put everything you possibly can to try and keep up with a potentially faster crew.
One of the races that I wanted to see today was in the Princess Elizabeth with St Paul's Racing. They won the event last year, so probably are defending champions. Today, they came up against Windsor Boys.
On the near our side, the right-hand side, the Buckinghamshire side, and the Berkshire Station, the Windsor Boys School. This, one has to say from the start, is probably going to be an equal contest because the Windsor Boys School is very much a sculling school, and this is effectively a second crew behind their top quad.
But they've got a flying start. They're off. If anything, had a little bit of a lead on the top of the island originally. But that's what they had to do because St Paul's, they won this event last year. And they've clearly gone off hard to try and take a lead on St Paul's. But St Paul's, they're a very, very able crew. And they're starting to come back. In fact, they've gone through Windsor Boys now to take a lead.
I'll quote Martin Cross, which is not always a good idea, I would say.
Brave.
Yes, they've got guys who know how to win in more than anybody, and also they've got the horsepower. And we're seeing very much the epitome on the water now. And this is only Wednesday, so we know there's plenty more on the tank.
I think there's more to come too. If you look at their blade work, it's not entirely together either. There seems to be a difference between Stern Pair and the two guys behind them in 5 and 6, which is unusual for that quality.
So many of the crews I've talked to have remarked about how they mustn't be anxious, how they mustn't be distracted, how this is such a big event.
Yeah, and it's the nerves down the start as well, or even at the boat tents. And there are so many distractions, having your family and your friends here, and it's managing the whole thing. Nowhere else do you race where, when you go down to the start, you've got all the equipment in the river you have to avoid, you've got all the pleasure cruisers, which build and build and build over the weekend.
But St Paul's have done their work for Wednesday afternoon on the first day of the 2016 Henley Royal Regatta. Through they come. A strong start. They met the challenge early on from the Windsor Boys School and then headed off down towards Henley Town Centre. But a good round of applause for the efforts of Windsor Boys School. It won't be there in 2016, but they have played their part in that heat. But overwhelmingly, it's St Paul's this afternoon.
Henley Royal Regatta is a very broad church. You run into all sorts of people on the riverbank. Joining me now, someone who's just walked in, James Cracknell. How was your day at Henley?
It was good, actually. It's nice to be at a sporting event, unlike Wimbledon or the cricket, where rain doesn't stop play and people get stuck into the weather, both on the side and on the water.
You were out on the water on the commentary box. How was that duty today?
It's interesting because you don't see the races in full any other year, and I wasn't here last year, and so it's the first time I've seen, especially in the first day where it's the glamour day of the weekend, but for so many people this is their year, the Wednesday, whether they to even qualify for the race, and so it's so important for them, and the crowds are here to support them, and that's what makes it a very special event.
Now, you and I know Steve very well, and Steve, as everyone knows, is the chairman of Henley Royal. How do you think he's doing as, even I suppose, a relatively new chairman now in his second year?
I mean, the good thing is that he has the pull in the rowing world, and so he can, his attraction is that he can get top crews from the top universities and top nations to come. Okay, top international crews is more difficult this year with the Olympics, but the primary thing, having spoken to some of the club oarsmen around here in the schools, is that it's even more, it's run by a rower for rowers, and that makes it very special event. Yes, the atmosphere is unique, but it's also having a man in charge who knows rowing and cares about rowing. The rowers have trust that they're going to have a good rowing experience on and off the water.
It's been probably more than a decade since you've raced at the regatta?
Yes, and my last race probably was your last race as well, 2004. Yeah, so it's like
and how's it changed when you come back and look at it with fresh eyes?
To be honest, one of the best things is it doesn't change that much, which is that, and that's what makes it special. It's not branded to the gills, and there's no sort of advertising breaks. The breaks are for people to have lunch and tea and stock up and take advantage of the breaks. The people then, when the racing's on, they do come and watch the races, which rather than people being late back in their seats after the half time in the FA Cup, people do come down and watch it, but also have a good time while they're doing it.
And what are you going to be doing for the rest of the week?
I will be tomorrow's a good day because the smaller boats start, and then Friday I have some friends racing who I raced with, and so I can watch them, and then Saturday, like many people, it's a chance to catch up with people you haven't seen for a long time, and you really can't walk more than 10 metres before seeing someone you haven't seen since this time last year.
And seeing the conditions today, have you ever seen the Henley course like that?
There's going to be faster stream because of all the rain and a headwind. It's an outdoor sport, and you've got to get used to rowing with tricky conditions. What the problem is, because of the stream, is the steering is difficult. In a Cotswold's boat where you've got a tiny rudder and you're focusing on racing hard as well, that's the problem. So you can see crews really struggling with the wind and the steering, but it's an outdoor sport, and it's not just about rowing, it's about steering properly and being cohesive.
Very good. Nice to see you. I'm not sure I've ever seen you in a tie.
I'm now going to have to go over and lie down.
That's it from day one of Henley Royal Regatta. We'll be back tomorrow with another packed programme. 89 races it was today, another 88 tomorrow, and the small boats get going tomorrow. So if the weather stays like this, it'll be another very testing day. See you then.